What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's Lumix Live. We have a little bit of a kind of hybrid stream this week. I sat down yesterday, actually 2 days ago, with Fritz Bacon from a company called Imagine to talk about TikTok and Instagram stories, like a lot of those kind of platforms that the vast majority of us that are used to working in the traditional, more photo, video oriented industries, the vertical video thing is kind of a outside area for a lot of us. So we had the opportunity to chat with him, and we're going to be playing that interview in a little bit. But in the meantime, we've really kind of set this stream up to cover some of the things that I've been seeing a lot of questions about online, some of the things that we've gotten some questions about in our email address, and that's about some of the features that are included on a lot of the Lumix cameras these days, and just kind of clearing up what they do, how you can use them, things like the Lut View Assist, how do you actually get a Lut loaded onto the camera. I've seen a lot of people asking questions about how to actually do that. And as usual, we're going to be just answering a lot of the questions that y'all have in the chat. So before we go too deep into a lot of this stuff, just want to get some housekeeping out of the way. If you do have a question, as you can see a couple people in the chat are already doing, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras before the question so I can see it. It's as simple as just type the @ symbol, start typing Lumix, and you'll see the name pop up. And then the other kind of follow-up is I dropped a poll in the chat. I have a feeling I know how this answer is going to come back from everybody, but just the kind of overall look. Have you considered looking at things like TikTok or Instagram stories as a marketing or a promotion avenue for your particular brands, if that's something that you're doing? So I'm very curious to see how this actually comes out. I'm pretty sure I know how it's going to come out. Being someone who follows a lot of the social platforms out there and a lot of the different forums, and I've seen a lot of people coming into this chat that I've seen in other forums as well. So, yes. If this is your first Lumix Live, these are weekly broadcasts that we do. 99% of the time they are live streams. Every once in a while we have to do a recorded stream for one reason or another, where we talk about photography, videography. We'll do interviews with creators, marketing people, videographers, you name it. We've probably at least done one interview with someone about varying different topics. We also talk a lot about the kind of Ask Us Anything platforms here. And what that is just a platform for you to ask me questions about the products, about, things that you may be having challenges with in the cameras, and getting an answer specifically from the brand. So you're not getting something that is out there, kind of someone on the forum who has no affiliation with the brand giving you an answer that 9 out of 10 times is usually not correct. So these are your opportunities to drive these kinds of streams, get your questions answered. And we do this in a number of different ways, either through the live direct chat here, so just by tagging at LUMIX Cameras. You can always shoot us emails over at lumixlive@us.panasonic.com. This way I can be reviewing them, and then we can create some different streams, kind of like what I'm doing today. But also, if you follow us over on Instagram, I do monitor the chat over there. So if you do comment on one of the Lumix USA posts, or if you send us a direct message, once it goes through and it gets approved into, out of the pending messages of the thousands that are sitting in pending, I will address questions over there as well too. So you are able to go get answers pretty much anywhere that you need an actual answer from the brand. So outside of that, the only last kind of housekeeping thing is, like we've done for every single week, is mentioning about the Lumix Pro Services. We have 2 platforms here in the United States. We have the Lumix Pro Service in Red tier as well as Platinum membership. The Red membership is a free-to-enter program. As long as you own a Lumix camera that's on the list, get yourself registered over on this page if you are in the United States. You can use the QR code that's on the screen. It'll bring you right over there. The Red membership being free gets you the 3-year manufacturer's warranty that is included on all new Lumix cameras. So you can go in there, check, make sure which camera you have is on the list, and you can get yourself registered. It also just gives you access to the online portal. So if you happen to have an issue with a camera, you can get it sent out to our team through the online portal. But then we also have the Platinum membership here in the US. The Platinum tier is a paid service tier, and it does typically require maybe a little bit more equipment, but right now I know that we are typically running some promotions on there where it's, if you have an S-Series camera, you can get the Platinum membership. But the Platinum membership, in addition to giving you that 3-year extended warranty, also gives you a lot of other benefits here. So you get a really cool welcome kit with a Peak Design slide light strap. You get 2-day repairs with free next day shipping both ways. You get 20% off out of warranty repairs. You also get access into our hotline. So if you're someone who would rather actually pick up the phone and call someone to troubleshoot an issue, you actually have access to that line in the Platinum series. You can also do things like annual sensor cleanings, EVF cleanings, firmware updates, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's really kind of like that top tier pro service for, people who either want better peace of mind for your equipment, or you're someone who's actually really heavily using your equipment. When you get done with your season, you want to be able to send it in and make sure it's good for the next season. If you are not in the United States, we do have Lumix Pro Service available in a number of other regions as well, so I will drop the link into the chat here. And this allows you to be able to check and see if your country or your region happens to have an LPS program. And the requirements to get into the different programs are going to be different between each region, so go check out your company's region and you'll be able to kind of see what the requirements are and what the costs are and the different tiers that are available. So now that that's all out of the way, let's run through some of these questions here before we go in and I play the interview, and before we actually start talking about my other camera that I have set up here. So, Luxshot says, why won't my S1, S1H cameras in aperture priority mode when using higher shutter speeds, use higher shutter speeds than 1/60th when using flash? That's a good question. Usually if I'm ever using flash, I'm shooting in full manual, so that I can just force my shutter speed to the highest that particular flash allows me to shoot at. A lot of people know that with the Lumix S1, S1R, and S1H, you can do a 320th of a second flash sync with select flashes that have the proper hardware to do it. But in that case, I would definitely, I would check and see, one, do you have minimum shutter speed turned on? Because that activates an aperture priority. The other thing is, usually I advise people just shoot flash photography in manual, force your shutter speed to be where you want your shutter speed to be, and then set your aperture where you want it. Because that's just how I was brought up and I was taught in school to work with flash photography. So probably not the best answer for you, Lux, but that's probably about as best I can get you. I can do some testing. I use Godox flashes, so I can do some testing on my cameras here. Let's see here. Next question. Have we released the megapixel size of the GH6 sensor? No, we have not. The only thing that we have announced about the GH6 is on the landing page that I have just dropped into the chat, so you can take a look at any of the information that we have released on the GH6. Let's see here. My brand involves event photos and videos and nature photography, not the best material for those platforms. Oh, okay. So answering onto the TikTok platform, TikTok or Instagram stories question. I would definitely take a look at it though. If you haven't downloaded TikTok, for the longest time, I haven't been one of those people that really enjoys, TikTok or, the Instagram stories thing, because it's built so heavily into Instagram. It's easy to just tap on it and let them roll through. But I think you'd be surprised what kind of content is actually on TikTok now. It's evolved very quickly over the last, especially over the last year, with a lot of people transitioning into it, knowing that it's, in a lot of cases, it's a younger demographic in there. So if you're looking at reaching out to other creators, other photographers, videographers, if you're looking at branding, it could be something to take a look at. And the interview that I have with Fritz in a little bit, we'll go into a little bit of what he does and how he has found success on there. Let's see here. Basil says, "What's the millimeter you get on screen between the f-stop and the light meter reading? For the life of me, I can't recall." Oh, the mm on the screen. I will have to actually double check because I usually haven't looked at a whole bunch of those. But we're going to be looking at the S5 that I have attached here. So that that you're seeing on the bottom there, we'll definitely take a look at it. All right. Is there a website for official refurbished Lumix lenses? We don't have an official, website for refurbed products. Yeah, it's just not something that we do, at least here in the United States. I can't speak for the other regions. Is there a Lumix macro lens for the S series? There is a macro lens for the S series cameras and on the L mount. It is made by Sigma, but there is no Lumix made lens for macro. Let's see here. He just got an S5. All seems awesome so far, but I can hear a soft humming when it's on, even with IBIS off. Any idea? Without being able to hear it myself, I think that might be... So even when you turn stabilization off on an actual magnetic stabilizer, an active stabilization system, modern cameras, you still can hear a noise because the magnetic fields still have to be active to hold the sensor in place. They don't get physically held in place. So it's possible that you're hearing that. It's also possible that you could be hearing focus motors. There's a lot of things that can kind of go into play. So I'm curious if you let me know what lens you're using. If that lens is one of ours, then we can kind of look further into that. If it's a third-party lens with an adapter, that introduces a whole nother set of kind of questions that could run up to on that. But yeah, there's a couple different things that could be going in there. Let's see here. Hey Sean, good to see you. Any idea who I could contact regarding Lumix Pro eligibility in Europe? I've tried customer support and they say it's a manufacturer's prerogative, not a customer support matter. I also tried contacting corporate, no response there. What I would suggest is if you go to the Lumix Pro Service page for your region, you should be able to reach out and contact the support team there. On the bottom of the page, there's typically a contact us link. So if you go to the page for your region, all the way on the bottom, there should be a contact us page, and you can reach out directly to the LPS service team. I know here in the United States, we're fairly intertwined with our service department, so usually we can get a lot of our communications back and forth. Sometimes not always the best, but there's different different ways it's handled in different regions. So here, it seems like heat pipe even without a lens, but I have a 20-60. So yeah, that I wouldn't be so sure of. If it happens even when you take the lens off, maybe if you bought it from a retailer where you can walk into the store and double check. I see that you're in Italy, so I'm not 100% sure what the dealer infrastructure is in Italy. If you're able to go in and compare it to a different model, that may get you an idea of if it's something that you're kind of hearing. It's a little challenging to be able to see what troubleshooting something like that's sound related if I can't hear it. Usually I'm pretty good at being able to figure stuff like that out. So sorry I can't be of more help. Worst case, if it really is something that concerns you, you can always reach out to your local service team. That would involve most likely sending the lens in and having it checked out, which might not be something you want to do, especially with the holidays coming up. But that's usually the path that you'd end up going. I would check with a local retailer first, though. Let's hear what I need to do. Buy Canon R6 or Blackmagic or wait for the GH6. I mean, you're asking a Lumix rep a question about buying one of our products or buying a competitor's product. I'm always going to tell you, buy our product. Not just because I work for the brand, but because I love our products. I was using our products before I even joined the company. Yeah, so... let's see here. Oh, okay, you got it on Amazon. I mean, if you purchased it on Amazon, you could always just try returning it or exchanging it on Amazon and doing something like that. But yeah, it's yeah. Let's see here. Martin says, I'm puzzled by the selection of luminance levels for 10-bit recording. Does 0 to 1023 have more dynamic range over 64 to 940? I convert legal in post. My target platform is YouTube. So, luminance range has nothing to do with dynamic range, period. There is no correlation to dynamic range and luminance levels. Luminance levels are how the dynamic range is mapped within the values that you have of the bit depth. So in 10-bit video, 0 to 1023 means that you are recording the full luminance range. When you then output that into, say, Premiere, or if you put it into directly up onto YouTube, these different platforms have different clipping points for their luminance range. If you were to just take a 0 to 1023 video with no editing and it looks gorgeous on your screen, then put it up on YouTube, you'll see that your shadows are crushed and your highlights are clipped. And that's mainly because it's not calibrated right. It's not representing in a 16 to or a 64 to 940, or I think it's 16 to 235 in an 8-bit codec. So what I do typically, because a lot of times I'm not doing edits to my, like, color grading to my footage. I try to shoot everything in 709 because I know that I'm just making like YouTube training videos, stuff like that. I will shoot in either 64 to 940 or I will shoot in 16 to 235. And then when I just load the stuff up on YouTube, I'm not dealing with that clipping. Like for these particular streams, I use the Like 709 color profile, and I have the camera set up for, since I shoot, in a lot of cases I'm doing this just in 8-bit, it's 16 to 235, and then OBS is just looking for that range. This way, when it's actually going up, my shirt doesn't blend into the chair behind me. So, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with dynamic range. Let's see here. Dave says, are there any Lumix Pro L-mount lenses in the pipeline? Even if I did know, I wouldn't be able to tell you unless there was an official or a formal announcement made by the company. Sean, in regards to Red Tier, I've submitted a repair order due to a blotch on my image. No cleaning, no pixel refresh, nor changing lenses fixes the problem. The dashboard. Let's see if there's a second part to that question. So yeah, if you're doing a sensor cleaning, Tim, the rest of your question hasn't been in there. So if you finish it, I'll be able to get back in there. Let's see here. I'm looking to start using V-mount batteries with my Lumix cameras. How do I ensure I don't fry my camera? So there is a couple things you can do. So for one, depending on which camera you have, and depending on what V-mount battery you're using, the safest thing is making sure that you're using, brand name V-mount batteries or higher quality V-mount batteries that have protection circuits built into them. If you're going to be using the battery delete for the camera, make sure that you're using the right voltages. Because what you have to remember is if you fry your camera using a V-mount battery because either you pump too much power through it, that's not a warranted repair. That's damage done to the camera. It's gotten a little bit easier these days. FX Lion makes the Nano series V-mount batteries that have a USB tap on them for power delivery. that I've used numerous times and used the V-mount battery and plugged USB into my S5, my GH5 Mark II, and my S series cameras. And I've run them that way because that's based, that's a standard. The USB PD is a standard that communicates between the camera and that battery. And that's been a pretty solid platform for me. As far as the rest of the uses for V-mount batteries, I would honestly share. I'd honestly say check with some of the peers over on the Facebook groups, some of the peers here in the chat that have had more experience with it. The biggest thing I can say from the brand is that you have to be very cognizant and very careful about the amount of power you're putting through these cameras. It is fairly easy in some cases if you're buying third-party, dummy batteries. If you're not buying the actual DCC adapters that we sell, there are chances that you could fry your camera through that port. Not to scare anybody with it, but it's just one of the things that you do have to be a little more cognizant about when you're using, with how many different companies are creating third-party accessories for these cameras these days. Let's see here. I'm going to take one more question, and then I'm going to roll the interview with Fritz here in a minute. So let's see here. Any comment about Lights joining the L-Mount Alliance? It's awesome. Seeing another very well-regarded, high-end cinema lens manufacturer join the L-Mount is awesome. That's about all I can say, because I have no idea what they would be doing now that they're in the Alliance, but it's an awesome addition, and we're super excited about it. Okay, so I'm going to roll the interview with Fritz. In the meantime, you can keep asking your questions in the chat. I'm just going to switch over to answering them, typing out answers in the chat. So let's hear from Fritz and my interview about TikTok and the different platforms that he uses. So, Fritz, could you give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you do for a living, and all that kind of fun stuff?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's good thing I practiced my elevator pitch here, right? So my name is Fritz Bacon. Currently, I'm a creative director at a company called Imagine. And what I really do in sort of a nutshell is I help companies understand TikTok, and I write and produce content around that. Before that, I have a background in videography and photography. So I came into New York as a photographer, and life sort of pulled me in a bunch of different directions, and then TikTok took over and really pulled me in a certain direction, and I'm sure we'll touch on that soon.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, such a cool thing to see is someone who's actually you know worked in the field, creates content, and then actually like kind of influencing companies and actually managing how people can actually utilize a lot of these quote unquote new platforms. They've been around long enough. And that kind of, I think, goes to why I was really excited that we were able to do this kind of interview for the viewers of Lumix Live. And um so you mentioned TikTok as as one of the platforms, and I know through our interactions with the company, TikTok being an incredibly useful platform that a lot of, I'd say, traditional photographers and videographers either are underutilizing or have just a kind of misconception, maybe in a lot of cases, as to what the platform is, why you would even use it. Um, how do you kind of like pitch or explain how to use TikTok to like a photographer, or primarily, I guess, really a videographer, because that's primarily who views a lot of our content, at least?
Yeah, that's a great question. I see this a lot, especially for those who might not be sort of college age or the traditional Gen Z, right? Target. They
Yeah.
get it. They all get it. They're in all their friends are on it. That makes sense. But for those who are like established in the world, or who might already be doing video and photo professionally, it is one of those platforms that it seems at first, and until you dive into it, you're like, nah, I'm all set. And I was the same way, because you hear TikTok and you immediately think dance videos with, teenagers, college kids like that. But it really has, and over the past 2 years, it's evolved, and it is. I liked my pitch when I meet other filmmakers and photographers is this is the beginning of the internet now. I used to say that about Reddit. Reddit was sort of where I made my career as a photographer, and now I see that this TikTok is the new place where careers are being made, right? And as a photographer, as a videographer, one of those things that you really need to focus on is sort of marketing for yourself. Obviously, you need to know your hard skills and you need to be able to take the videos and sort of do that. But what most of us, and myself included, forget to do is share our work, right? And so I think TikTok is one of the best places to do that, especially in this day and age, to show that you sort of understand this digital landscape. And as a videographer and as a photographer, if you can sort of gain some traction there, it'll really help you in your career. More eyes on your work, right? That's what you need. That's how you get more work. So that's sort of my basic pitch and sort of why I whenever someone is like, oh, TikTok, you're on TikTok, like, nah, I'm also, and it's like, no, trust me, you want to look into TikTok, and that's the main reason.
And it's honestly been kind of funny, especially over the last year. I for a lot of the things that I do with Panasonic Lumix is, I monitor a lot of like the Facebook comments and the Instagram channels, the what I would consider now the traditional social media platforms that every company's looking at. Everyone's always kind of monitoring to see what's going on. And you definitely see content being shared, but you also see what I would kind of like really categorized as a very kind of kind of closed wall kind of environment, right? Do you see in your experiences with this a major demographic shift in utilizing a platform like TikTok versus things like Facebook or Instagram in like who you're reaching your content to? Or is it still kind of like you're seeing the migration of people moving in over there?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mix, right? So like I said, TikTok really started with that Gen Z audience. But over the pandemic, you saw this amazing, like really interesting shift, right? Before the pandemic, I was monitoring TikTok for about a year or so, right? And it was mostly Gen Z, mostly that target audience. But the moment the pandemic hit and we had people were just looking to fill their time, that's when you saw this like second bloom for TikTok. That's when you started to see companies jump on board, because what happened was those people making decisions about marketing and everything, they jumped onto TikTok. And what else are you going to do when the pandemic first came in? You're just trying to fill your time, and a lot of people found that in TikTok, and so there was a shift there. And it's interesting because there is a trickle down effect, right? Like I said, I think TikTok is now the beginning of the internet. But what happens is the stuff that really boils to the top of TikTok, and the videos that are getting millions upon millions of views, they will be, TikTok's super easy to download videos. You will find them on those traditional sites. You'll see them on posted by like big Instagram accounts, those meme accounts. That's where you start to see it, and then it trickles down through Twitter to Instagram to then Facebook. It does cycle through. So you are seeing that now TikTok does have a different audience, like you were saying.
Now, how do you coming from a traditional filming and photographic background, the our traditional mindset for filming and creating content had always been 16 by 9 horizontal, or 21:9, any of the cinemascope aspect ratios, primarily landscape. I'm sure you've seen it on a lot of the different platforms. There is this, big hesitancy in a lot of the traditional filmmakers and traditional videographers to start creating content in a vertical aspect ratio. How did you approach making a change like that, or was it not even really kind of a concern for you?
For me, so that's a great question, because I know exactly sort of that argument, the traditional and the traditional filmmakers, right? The ones who want to, make movies and, be on the silver screen, Hollywood, that style of filmmaking, it doesn't necessarily lend well to vertical, especially when you're those cinematographers that are shooting that, that's like the high art of the the digital video world. And it's tough to then pivot to social and go vertical. For me, I've always been in the social space. I always wanted to make commercials. That was sort of what I've always wanted to do. And early on, when I was back in college, um, uh, I just started making, square content. So it was not a because Instagram was starting to be, a big thing for me back then. And I was the more that Instagram evolved, the more things went vertical. And I was able to evolve that easily. But there are ways, and I have seen it with, traditional people who would shoot horizontally. There are ways to sort of still tell the exact same story, but in a vertical format, right?
Yeah.
There are ways where you can set it up with like a normal iPhone shot, where it's like, oh, here's some of my footage, and then maybe you crop 4:3, right? You lose a little bit, and and then you do that. But there's uh, the thing that is really pulling our attention these days, and it's not, it's not the world around us. It's this thing that we hold in our hand, right? And I even look at, yeah, exactly, you've got it right there. Everyone has it in their pocket, and I don't even stare at my TV as long as, so it's one of those things where um the vertical content, I don't think is ever going to go away. So it's how do you the question, I guess, it comes down to, how do you adapt your workflow into that vertical, whether it's shooting behind the scenes of your amazing movie that's going to be, horizontal, and then you just show the behind the scenes, right? And then you can tease it at the end. Like there's so many different ways. And luckily, filmmakers, photographers, we're creative and we're problem solvers. And so if you take the chance on the platform, you will find a way to, like, still tell that vertical story while preserving your horizontal sort of integrity, maybe is the word.
Yeah, we have seen, like, just such the big change in reaching our customers, our fellow filmmakers and photographers. And what has kind of amazed me is actually really the ingenuity, to your point. Photographers, videographers, we're troubleshooters, we're problem solvers, we get things done that have to be done. But have you seen any like big technology shifts in cameras, or anything that's really kind of like got you excited about, that this is actually becoming, in the, I guess, the traditional mindset, it's actually becoming a more accepted or a more kind of welcomed uh transition?
Yeah, there's plenty of new gear coming out, right? That's just always going to be a thing. One of my favorite things that I've seen recently is I was on a shoot with our studio, um, and my team pulled up with a Red Ranger, really solid spec'd out cinema camera, and it had an L bracket, a large L bracket, because we were shooting everything vertically. So we took this, traditional cinema camera, and we shot an entire vertical campaign on it on an L bracket mounted on a tripod. And so, super simple. That is like if technology's up here, an L bracket's like really simple, right? It's like it's one of those things where it's just extremely, it was a very interesting thing. But as far as technology, it's always advancing, right?
Yeah.
And look at, like, all I've been shooting on recently personally, and I just got back from a shoot, is the S5, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect example of technology that is now suited for this new creative is what I would call it, right? It's a if you're a photographer and you don't know how to shoot video, it's you got to learn how to shoot video and vice versa, right? It's one of those things. It goes back to marketing, and so many times I've always had to show up on set and I have a camera and then I have a cinema camera and with the S5 it's super sick. It's over there somewhere, but you've used it. It's that one toggle and that has really made my workflow a lot more interesting for both my personal work and a lot of what I do for commercial work as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's with so much kind of cool stuff coming out. I mean, we've obviously, this being a Panasonic Lumix, and you taking your time to actually talk with us about this. It's cool to see that even if you're looking at the high end cinema cameras, Vericams, Reds, Ari, all those different cameras, they're still being used in a lot of these ways. Just like you said, it's literally just flip the camera and we're good to go, and that fits the vast majority of mobile devices these days. But I know from a lot of the development we've done with our cameras and stuff too, the ideas of knowing that a new age or a modern photographer or videographer is going to want to be able to deliver a piece of content to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram stories, all of these different platforms. It kind of amazes me how kind of full circle we've come in a lot of this stuff, because you've worked with cinema cameras, and in a lot of cases you shoot open gate, and then you're masking off in the camera on the back for your safety ranges and stuff like that. And a lot of the cameras now, especially with our system, we've got all of those, basically all those masks built into the camera for the 5x4, for the 9x16 if you're shooting yourself, your vertical or your horizontal filming. How often do you see yourself, or do you see yourself in the future kind of migrating to where everything just tries to get captured as open as possible and then just crop it in post? Or are you someone who just kind of shoots for the project and deliver and create for that specific platform?
Oh, I would say so. That example that I just gave you before, that's very rare. What you see nowadays is, we are in this fast-paced landscape, right? Things can happen instantly. Like you're just saying, you can upload off your phone. You can create a viral video in 2 seconds, right? It's crazy how fast things move. So more often than not, what we do is exactly what you said: shoot it wide, and just know in the back of our head is, okay, we're also going to be probably cropping this vertically. There might be a square crop. There might be a YouTube edit, and there is there is very few instances where it's like, okay, let's just shoot it vertical. It's let's cover all of our bases, because you don't know exactly what we might want to do with it after what we initially planned out. You might plan for horizontal, but then you get a call back, we love the horizontal stuff, it's performing well, let's test it out on Facebook, let's test it out on Instagram, and then it's like, well, good thing we shot it in 4K, right? And especially so shooting as big as you can, as often as you can, is almost always the move.
Yeah, and that actually segued perfectly into the kind of next question I had was, so when it comes to resolutions, there is still a fairly strong feeling I see in the market for, well, our clients are asking for 1080. They're not asking us for 4K content. So why should I shoot 4K? Why should I shoot 6K? Why should since we've got cameras that shoot 6K? How do you kind of approach that if someone kind of says that to you, like, well, the client's only asking for 1080, so I'm only going to shoot 1080?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if I'm being honest, most of the people I work with, memory's easy these days, right? You just thumbstick, or it's getting cheaper and cheaper. So most people will shoot at 4K, but occasionally we will get those questions where it's like, oh, let's just throw it in a 1080 and be done with it. But what I always push for is just you know, I know that we are moving forward rapidly, and the resolutions are going to just get better and better, right? I think 5 years from now 4K will be 1080, right? Like that'll, there'll be that shift. And so shooting it as big as you can just preserves the longevity of it. And so that's sort of always where my mind goes at, especially if I'm shooting something personal. Maybe I'm on traveling, right? And I'm like, oh, this is just fun. Do I shoot it at 1080 and get 12 hours of footage, or do I have to like take a break and grab a coffee and dump my 4K footage? It's like, I'm probably going to do the 4K coffee footage transfer, right? It's like I said, I want and most, I think most filmmakers can probably relate to that, is just like, you want the best quality footage that you can, and because you never know what you're going to do with it later.
Yeah, yeah. Our industry does seem to be rather cyclical when it comes to logic in certain cases. I mean, we joke around a lot of times here with one of my coworkers, Matt, about how we're starting to see shows like Seinfeld and Friends and all these shows getting coming back on platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, but shows that you don't see come back are like Home Improvement and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And a lot of it's down to that fact that, well, those shows shot film so they can be remastered. Everything else was shot in true standard def 4:3,
Yeah.
and they look like garbage on 4K TVs these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, that's why I wonder if there's an interesting market in the CCTVs, the old bricks out the back, so you can watch those shows again.
Yeah, right. So I want to wrap this up a little bit because this is there's so much about advertising and social media that I know a lot of people that follow us usually have, I'd say, a fairly decent understanding of marketing and how to pitch themselves. If you were to give maybe one or two tips, or kind of like, make sure you're trying to do this for the average filmmaker today, how would you advise them for advertising themselves or getting themselves out there to more people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and I oftentimes I'm sort of interviewing filmmakers or photographers for, sometimes I have a campaign that I need someone else to shoot, right, outside of the team. And the first thing that I do, and is I either look at your website, or if I'm on the go and I have, and I've just got my phone, I immediately pull up your Instagram, right? Or even better, if you have TikTok. So the best thing you can do in this day and age, if you are trying to sort of get hired for jobs, or start, even if you're new to the industry and you want to start sort of meeting other like-minded people, right? That's something I know that we didn't really talk about, but the networking and just finding other creatives on these new platforms, you really find people who get it just as well as you will, and then you can share information, share ideas, create together. So sort of the best idea, sort of the best advice I always give people is, if you haven't downloaded TikTok, download TikTok, number one. And number two, just start experimenting with it, right? TikTok is a place where you can just get weird. You're starting from zero. You can experiment. You can throw it. You can throw things out there, see what sticks, and eventually, you'll be able to figure out what works for you. And then, when you're looking to get hired, when you're looking to meet new people, you'll have that sort of page that shows exactly how you think through things, and it's very easy to tell sort of who is really good at sort of being creative, right? Your most creative things will come in the places that you have fun with and you experiment on. and that's the last bit of advice is, have fun with this platform, right? It's
Yeah.
it is, it's a really creative world on TikTok specifically. And you can as photographers, as videographers, you don't want to, and especially once you get into the industry, you don't want to lose why you're doing it. And that's, we all picked up a camera at the beginning because we thought it would be fun, right? And so
Yeah.
these new platforms really can help you sort of re-inspire yourself. You see things in new light. So it's a long answer. I don't know if it if it answered the question exactly, but those are sort of
Yeah.
some of the closing things I like to tell people, especially those who might be on the fence of trying it out.
Yeah, no, that's like perfect. I mean, because it just perfectly illustrates that one, it's not an easy thing to give anyone like 1 or 2 points of advice.
Yeah.
This industry is so vastly different than it was even a year ago. I mean, hell, even a week ago, it was different than it is now. So, um, you know, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me. Where can everyone check out your work and follow you obviously on TikTok and all those other platforms too?
Yeah. So pretty consistent. I snagged my username, just Fritz Bacon. I'm big on TikTok. I'm always posting things there, experimenting. And traditionally, you can always find me on Instagram. That's the easiest way to message me. I always try to look in my DMs and find people with questions, related to filmmaking and whatnot. So if anyone has questions, you can find me there.
Very cool. Well, thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and yeah, I hope everyone else enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, and hope to see you all on TikTok.
So yes, that was the interview that I had with Fritz. Hopefully, that shared a little bit of some insight into TikTok and the social platforms. There's, I think, a lot made about platforms like TikTok and the challenge of kind of adapting into these kinds of new areas for one reason or another. And I think a couple of the points that we touched on about vertical filming or shooting wide for the purpose of editing afterwards for different use cases is kind of something that a lot of people from the conversations that we've had on this platform for a while, I get the feeling a lot of you are probably already doing some of this stuff. If you're someone who's already adopting the fact of shooting, 6K, if you've got an S1, if you have an S1H and you're shooting 6K 3x2 open gate, being able to crop and post and, slide the frame around and re-edit. There are a lot of cool tools that we've built into the cameras to actually kind of support a lot of this stuff. So this kind of brings us to the next kind of section of Lumix Live for, the last 10, 15 minutes that we've got on this week's stream. So I wanted to jump over to my S5 that I have attached here and actually kind of go over, answer some of the questions that we've gotten in email and over the last couple of streams about, hey, what does this feature do and how do I actually use it? Throughout this part of the stream, continue asking your questions. I'll happily jump in and answer a question that some people have. Because I do see 2 questions here about, or comments actually about, horizontal and vertical video, the fact that mobile devices, you can just turn them and view your footage in horizontal. And as I answered in the chat, it's, for the most part, yes, you actually can do that, but not all the platforms that you would want to be putting the footage on will respond the way you want them to. So in a lot of cases and we'll use the vertical video as the example here because it's probably the most dramatic shift and involves the largest amount of pre-planning. You can always shoot your camera horizontal. So like I have my S5 attached here and I've got it set horizontal. You see I've got the 3 set of lenses here. And, okay, nothing special about this shot. But if I know that I'm going to be wanting to put this on something like Instagram stories, or if I'm going to be putting this onto TikTok, I know that I need to have a vertical version of this that's actually filmed vertically or that is cropped vertically so that the footage, when it's loaded up, people don't have to turn their camera. It doesn't become kind of quote unquote like an annoyance for the viewer, because truthfully you want to have content that's easiest to consume on the platform that it's being delivered on. You don't want to put any other roadblocks in front of that person to watch what you're showing them. And we've built into these cameras, if I click into the menu here, we've built into the cameras here the mode called frame markers. And I'm going to end up fumbling on this to get to my frame markers because it's been a while since I went through in here. So we'll go to the right page. So here we go. So in the settings menu, so the cog menu, you'll see that you've also got a number of different pages here. And for monitor and display, we have 3 different page options. So on a number of the newer Lumix cameras, so the GH5 Mark II, the S series cameras for the most part, you have this option called frame marker. So if I go into this and then go down into set, you'll see that I have a number of frame aspect ratios. And we get a lot of questions about this. You know, even if you're going to be shooting for CinemaScope, you know, we have those frame markers in here. The 2:1 aspect ratio, which is very popular with things like that are delivered on Netflix. It's very popular on a lot of things that are delivered, you know, on mobile devices too. But we still have things like 239:1, 235:1, 185:1, and your normal 16:9. But what we did with cameras like the G100, which was, I believe, the first camera that we introduced this into, is we started adding a lot of those social media aspect ratios. So things like 5:4, 4:5. 1:1 has been in a lot of the cameras for a long time. But then probably most unique of this is this 9:16 aspect ratio. So like if I select my 9:16, I then have all the extra kind of added benefits of the way our system works here. So I can change what that frame color is. So say I want it red so I can easily see it. I can change what the frame mask is. Do I actually want to have it where it's going to darken out the frame outside of where my capture area is? So I'm able to come in here and say if I set this to, I'll set it to 50% for this demo. I can then go back and say, all right, I want to turn my frame markers on. And when I half press the shutter now, you'll see I get my vertical safety area. So what this means is that it's still going to be filming a 16:9, you know, horizontal image, but I'll know that when I bring this into software and I want to clip my vertical shot out of this, I know that I can have my subject captured in this middle part of the frame here. So I can keep it in this middle part of the frame and know that when I do have to make my crop that way, it's going to be within the frame. Now, if you're someone who's, you know, really horizontal is where your footage is going to be, if you're not interested in doing vertical, you know, cuts of anything or filming vertically for it, that's why we've also got things like the 5:4 and the 4:5 ratio. So I can come in, change this to 4:5, that's the vertical 4:5, and then also come in here and change this to, say, 5:4, which would be my horizontal. Now this becomes really useful in situations like Instagram. Since Instagram, yes, you can load a 16:9 landscape, you know, video file up into your Instagram feed, but you're losing resolution up and down. So you're going to be having black bars on a 16:9 image. If you wanted to be able to upload and take maximum benefit of the available resolution that the platform gives you, you'd want to upload in a 5:4 or a 4:5 aspect ratio. So this would allow you to shoot wide at 16:9, so that say you've got your shot for something like, your shot's basically ready for things like YouTube or Facebook, you know, any normal 16:9 ratio. But then you know that your cropped region here in the middle, when you go decide to, you know, actually export this out in 5:4 or 4:5, you're able to then just have this set up. You know your safety range. When you load it up into these platforms, you bring it into your editing software, you're not going to have to then later on be like, ah, crap, 5x4 isn't going to give me the width that I need, because it's not like the photography side where you've got things like content aware that can make up the areas outside of the frame through the smart algorithms and content aware. Video, we just don't have that kind of thing yet. So in a shot like this, if I wanted to make sure that I had all three of those lenses in the frame and I'm not so worried about the GH5 Mark II that's there, I can rotate this just a little bit, make sure that my lenses are all within that center box. And then as I'm filming, I'm able to know, all right, I've still got my 16:9. I still want to make sure that everything that's out in the gray area of the frame here is going to be, filled with proper content, but my main crop is still in that safety region. So let's see. I saw a question come in here. Is there a place I can go to see what film shows commercials were filmed using Lumix? I don't know if we have a dedicated location, kind of like what our Vericam team has. But I do know, at least the one that I can remember off the top of my head was Bo Burnham's Inside was shot on the S1H. If you head over to the Lumix News, which is where we have all of our case studies, we do have some of this information. I'm going to pull the link up to the page and I'll drop it into the chat. This is where we've got case studies that have, situations where Lumix cameras have been used and provide you with some just new information about, things that are going on with the cameras. So that's in the chat there. Let's see here. At Jake. Okay, actually, I'm going to go back to this one for FC's question. I wish YouTube allowed photo sharing, concerns with TikTok's politics and governments, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, this is not really a place I'm going to comment on any of that stuff, but do your research on any platform that you go in. Even platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of the ones that we normally think that are, the accepted ones, do your research on all of them. FC says, smartphone aspect ratios used to be 16:9 and are starting to increase in recent phones like 20:9, 22:9. How can you make lenses to accommodate high aspect ratios while maintaining sharpness? So something to, I think, take into account there is that the aspect ratio isn't really going to cause any issue with your lenses. Your cameras are still going to be recording way more resolution than mobile devices or even tablets are presenting to you. Most phones and tablets do not have 4K displays. They're either still very heavily relying on 1080p displays, or they're in some cases into things like 1440p or Quad HD. Or was it Quad Full HD? Quad HD, so 1440. So even things like this, like I use the Samsung Z Flip 3. This has an abnormally wide aspect ratio for a lot of content. So you end up having black bars on both sides for most content, especially on YouTube. The truth is, at that point, you would just be either exporting your footage to fill the kind of average, which in most cases you'd be looking at either an Apple device or a Samsung device, and to a point now, a Google Pixel device, for what aspect ratios those are, and trying to maximize as much as you can. Since mobile devices have notches in them these days, you can definitely run into some challenges when it comes to how wide you actually want to go, and do you want your content, do you then start shooting content to account for a hole punch camera on a mobile device? It all just depends on where you're delivering your content. If you're someone who delivers your content primarily to be consumed on mobile devices, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to want to be shooting that content vertically. The average person is not going to, like if you're swiping through things like Reddit or Imager or Instagram stories or TikTok, 9 out of 10 times, people are not going to take their phone, flip their grip, and look at it horizontal. They are going to want to continue to view it vertically, and if the footage doesn't look right on it, they'll just swipe to the next piece of content. Let's see here. Is it possible to add frame markers and vector scopes available to the S1? Honestly, no comment. I really don't know as far as with the S1 goes. FC says, I feel like high aspect ratios waste a lot of a lens capabilities since a lens is circle. Well, truthfully, all digital cameras would waste a lens projected image. Lenses all project a circular image, so unless you're using a circular sensor, you're wasting quote unquote, wasting a huge portion of the image that you would be capturing. The biggest difference is whether or not a camera can maximize how much of that image circle is being used. Cameras like the BGH1 or GH5S that use multi-aspect sensors, they will actually maximize the amount of recorded area that's being used within that image circle. That's why one of the reasons why those two cameras don't have in-body stabilizers. It allows you to actually have a larger sensor that when you're shooting these different ratios, it's not just taking a 16:9 and then clipping the vertical out of it. It's actually increasing and using a much larger area. So let's see here. Dave says, what does the red HDMI Roman numeral 2 or pause indicator mean in the top left? Is that for recording control through HDMI? Yes. The HDMI with the pause indicator in the top that you see there, that is telling you that the camera is set up properly, so that if I had like my Ninja attached to this, or if I had my Video Assist attached to this, I can just click the record button on the camera and it sends the trigger info over. Cool. So let's get through. There's two more kind of features that I wanted to make sure that I cover on this stream to address some of the questions that we got in email about. So one of the other questions we got here was about the hybrid log gamma view assist and the V-log view assist functionality on these cameras. If you didn't know, we have the ability to add Luts into the camera, along with the pre-included like 709 conversion Lut from Panasonic. So that would be V-log L or V-log to Rec 709. But there is also the ability to load in your own custom Luts, or Luts that others have created out there. So there's a couple things that you have to make sure that you kind of go through when you're getting ready to set these things up. First of which is you need to make sure that the LUT that you're going to load onto a Lumix camera is a .vlt LUT. So it's a Vericam LUT file. So first off, you make sure that its extension is .vlt. This way the camera can see it. Cube files, the camera won't see them. It won't know what to do. So you have to convert them over to VLT. And there's a lot of software solutions that you can convert your LUTs over to a VLT file. Next, when you put it onto the camera, you have to make sure that the name of your LUT is 8 characters at most. A lot of times like if you go to our LUT library available for the Vericam, they come down in the full name to tell you what it is. So like Nicest 709 or Aggressive 709. If you just copy and paste those onto your SD card in the VLT file, the camera's not going to see them. You have to rename them to be 8 characters. So once you do that, you then just literally put them on the root file of your card. So above the DCIM or the private folder, just put them right with those folders. So you're looking at all of it together. Once you've got that, put the card into the camera in slot 1 or slot 2. And then we're going to go into the camera menu here. Put my camera back. And you're going to go down to the monitor display video. It's the kind of just the video support page here in the cog menu. And for this case, we're going to go to V-log View Assist. And then two things that you can do here. You can click Read LUT File. And in this case, I have a card in slot 1, so I'm going to tap slot 1. And you'll see that I have 2 of my LUT files loaded in here. I have Nicest 709 and Aggressive 709. So if I tap Nice 709 and then come in and say I want to save it as set 3, just click Yes. The camera will say reading LUT data is complete. When you press any button to go out of this, it goes right back to the LUT kind of display here. Now here's where you can say, I want to have my View Assist out over monitor or out over HDMI, and this is where you can toggle them on and off. So right now, I've got my aggressive 709 Lut set as the one that I want to use for toggling. What you can do at this case is if I go back into shooting, and I'm actually going to turn my frame markers off for this demonstration. So right now, you'll see I'm in like 709 for my color profile, but I'm now going to change this over into Vlog. So right now, we're just outputting Vlog over HDMI. But I want to be able to send the LUT over my HDMI so that the preview, in this case, which is OBS, is able to see that LUT conversion being done. So one of the easiest things that you can do, and you can do this on pretty much any of the buttons on the camera, is if you press and hold, in this case I'm pressing and holding the left arrow button on the back of the camera, you'll see that I have this programmed to Lut View Assist HDMI. So when I have this set, if I press the left arrow, it'll bring up the prompt, View Assist over HDMI, on or off. When I flip this on, now you see that it applies that LUT and it's set up over HDMI. So my feed coming out over HDMI now has that LUT being baked into it for external recording. Now this can be a double-edged sword. If you are recording externally in something like ProRes to a Ninja, and you have in Vlog and you've got your camera set for the LUT out, it's sending that LUT out over HDMI. So you're not going to have the full Vlog footage. You're going to have Vlog footage with a preview of the LUT over it. So you got to be a little careful with stuff like this. Usually, I would say you want to actually just have it preview the LUT in the camera and just let the external HDMI out, unless you're doing something like this. So for broadcasting like this, I can be shooting in Vlog and then just have my LUT attached, because if I'm recording internally 10-bit, that just lets me save and make sure that things are there. So yeah, you can see, and I can toggle this back and forth. So there's my log footage, and there's the aggressive 709. Now, for those of you that do a lot of color grading, you know that this is not the last step. This is just straight up, you've got, the kind of preview that you've got here. You're still going to want to do color correction and things like that and really actually push and pull these files, because that's why you're shooting Vlog. This doesn't necessarily, kind of really cause too much of a challenge for people. Let's see here. I saw a couple of questions come in here. Just took delivery on a GH5 Mark II yesterday. Menu is very different from the GH5. Going through the option 6K anamorphic, why not regular 6K, and what limits it from 422 10-bit? So the regular 6K recording, there's a difference here. So 6K anamorphic records in it's open gate. The reason why it's called open gate in this case is because you're shooting in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and you're using as much as you can. That does not mean you have to shoot it as anamorphic. You can just shoot it with spherical lenses and you're good to go. In that case, I believe it's 420 10-bit, because it's an HEVC file, and that's why it's not 422 10-bit. A lot of times, HEVC files that are 422 10-bit are a nightmare to edit with. Graphics cards for graphics acceleration, in 9 out of 10 times, do not support 422 10-bit for acceleration. You end up having to go very heavily on your CPU for that. 420 10-bit is the standard for HEVC, and that's what most graphics card manufacturers support. I know NVIDIA does. So you're able to just take it in, and your GPU would be able to support you in your editing and post with that. So that's a little bit of the difference there. Martin says, I would like Panasonic provides false color LUTs to assist nailing skin tone exposure, i.e. in Vlog, to aid where the skin tone should be. So yeah, for those that use false color, yes, that would be a nice addition. Matt and I have definitely brought that up numerous times to our team about implementing a false color in the cameras. I don't have any information to share with anybody, so unfortunately I don't have an update there. But what I can tell you is that if you are shooting in Vlog, skin tones are 42 IRE. And that brings up one of the other tools that we have in the camera, which I'm just actually going to... let me do it this way. I'm going to reassign one of my buttons here to show you the tool that we do have in camera to support that particular request. It is called Luminance Spot Meter. And if you have one of the cameras that has Luminance Spot Meter built into it, it's a really, really useful tool for filmmakers when you're shooting with vlog. So right now, if I push up on my directional pad here, you'll see that I get a crosshair. And in the bottom of the frame, you'll see that I've got an indicator there that is reading out in stops. So this is calibrated so that if I shoot, if I have a gray card present, I can just put this box over that gray card and have it read out 0. So right now you'll see like, okay, this isn't the greatest test of it, but right now it says +4 stops. So if I come in and I set this in place, and then come in and stop my image down here to where this says about, oh, and I have the Lut baked in on this. So here, if we go to log, so right now, this gray card is saying that that should be 0, 0 on the stops rating, which means that it's rating at 42 IRE. Now, obviously, if I throw my 709 Lut on this, it's really dark, it's really underexposed. So for this, you would want to make sure that your subject, because everything in this scene is now below, as you can see, it's almost 2 stops below where that point is with the lighting here. This is where I would come in, and in this case, I'm just going to adjust it to I so that I can see where I want my image to be. We'll bring this up to about 3.5 to where we were. I'll throw my Lut back on here, and actually I'm going to bring it up even brighter. Just so that it looks better in the screen here. That's one of the tools that you can use built into the camera to get your kind of image where you want it. The other tool that you have at your disposal with the Lumix cameras is our zebras. Our zebras built into these cameras have a number of other functionalities built in that you don't typically find in most cameras. So if I go into the setup here and I go back into zebra patterns, you have a bunch of different capabilities with your zebras. I can come in here, go into set, and say, all right, I want my zebras to show up at a base and a range, which means when I click on here, I can say that I want my base to be 0 stops, which means that it's at 42 IRE. And you see, as I change this up, the percentages change. So if I leave this at 0, and then I want my range to be plus or minus a third of a stop, or quarter of a stop, so it's 0.2. That means that my zebras will only show on subject in the frame that is between 41 and 44 IRE, so right in that skin tone range. So now when I half press my shutter and I come out, if I turn my zebras on, you'll see right now my zebras are showing right in the kind of middle of the frame. So just out of the brighter areas on the lenses, in some of the grip on the GH5 Mark II. This means that those areas are set for 42 IRE. So now if I use this in conjunction with my Luminance Spot Meter, I can go to the highlight point on the wall there and see that, actually, I don't want to focus on the wall. I want to change my other point here. You'll see that the highlight on that wall there is only 3.4 stops over middle gray, or over 42 IRE. So I have more than enough headroom there, because the V-Log, so in this case with my S5, V-Log can go almost up to about 6 stops overexposed, and you'll still be able to recover your highlight info. So shooting this way with Luminance Spot Meter and our Zebra tools that we've built into it really limits the times that you'd have to shoot the older way of shooting, 2 stops over and, kind of to protect your shadows. If you're someone who's going to be able to set up a shot and adjust your lighting in a pretty nice controlled environment, this lets you be able to know, okay, I have more than enough information in my highlights that I can pull my highlights down in post, especially if I'm shooting something like ProRes RAW or Blackmagic RAW. But then also I can take that little kind of indicator here, and I can put it right on this like really dark part of the lens and know that that's only 3 stops under. So there's more than enough information in the shadow region as well. So this image as it sits here, if I put this back to the true vlog image here, there's more than enough flexibility in this image to grade it and maximize the amount of dynamic range that's available from the sensor. And I don't have to worry about the downsides that happen when you start overexposing your midtones. Because when you overexpose your midtones, some people have pointed out that you start to actually cause some issues with skin tones when you're overexposing too much. If you're shooting all the way up to where your highlights are just about to clip, you can run into some problems where your skin tones, because you're pulling them back, they may not look 100% right. Where if you shoot your skin tones properly, or your 18% gray, if you shoot that at 42 IRE, or if it shows 0 on the stops meter here, that will get you the proper exposure to then bring into post for your editing. And very good point from J&W Studios. Different skin hues and tones will change a lot of this too. So this is not just kind of a universal rule for filming. Skin tones change. Usually measuring and basing off skin tone for your point isn't necessarily the best way to do this. If you shoot with a gray card or any kind of chip chart, those will be the most accurate way to actually shoot and grade your footage. The Expo disc that I used for this was not the right tool to pull up my luminance spot meter with. So don't do it that way. Use an actual gray card, because then you know that that's where 0 IRE should be. And now you just light your scene to maximize your dynamic range. Let's see here. Jake says, I'm trying to download the latest firmware updates for the S cameras, but my new MacBook is telling me that it's an unsupported file. Do I need to use a PC to download the future updates? No, you do not. The error that you're most likely getting is the Apple OS is trying to unzip or uncompress the .bin file. I ran into that when I updated one of my MacBooks to Big Sur. From Catalina, it worked perfectly fine, but then Big Sur updated. Now I keep getting that kind of error there. 2 things you can do if you're using Safari to download. You can go into the settings and tell Safari to not auto unzip or auto uncompress zip files when you download them, because it uses a database of file extensions that it assumes are zipped files. You can disable that, because when you download the file from our website, it'll come down as a zip file, and then it'll automatically get unzipped as the bin file. But then in some cases, Mac OS will decide to try to also unzip the .bin file, because it tries to get you the final file out of it. Make sure that you're taking just the .bin file, putting that on your card, and putting that into your camera. 9 out of 10 times, it's just an OS error telling you, because it can't unzip a .bin file. Let's see here. I don't think Lumix should fret about this trend too much. Maybe release G100, S100 type of camera that focuses on that type of content. To be clear, you're talking about vertical video. So truthfully, it's not just Lumix. Everyone out there is looking at the new modern way that consumers are consuming content. Vertical video is something, and that's why I was laughing. And with the poll that I have up here, it's going exactly how I thought it would go. Vertical video is here to stay. It is something that will become a more important part of advertising. It will become a more important part of content delivery. The truth is, a lot of us may not like it, but in a lot of cases with a lot of companies that are looking for advertising content, if you're someone on a commercial side that's working to get jobs from companies, larger and larger companies, and more often, vertical video is becoming a requirement. So cameras, if they can do it, why not do it? It definitely doesn't mean that that's a focus of the camera. It's more just that we put a ton of tools in our S series and our G series cameras, so why not put them in the cameras? Make them available for anybody that wants to be able to utilize them. Let's see here. Ort says, does it make sense to save 1-to-1 pixel recordings like in crop mode as 422? The Bayer pattern delivers not the color information for more than 420. So I think there's a little bit of a difference here. So 422, the color, the chroma subsampling, and then the 10-bit, and the difference between 422 and 420. 90% of times, the way cameras are developed and the way the images are created, if you're able to tell a difference there, you're way above the level of what anybody really is going to be doing with these cameras. Shooting pixel to pixel, you're pretty much perfect. It's going to be perfectly fine to film with, edit with, and work with. Shooting from the higher resolutions, where you're shooting in, say, 6K and downscaling to the 4K image, yeah, you're going to get a sharper looking piece of footage. That's usually why you get things like 422 and 10-bit, though a lot of camera companies still don't give you the full complement of things that you need for downsampling. But it's all about the output that you're going to be getting. So, let's see here. Luminance spot meter is a great tool. Can we have it also move with the center of the human head? I use manual focus and I would love to use that in auto. That's definitely a clever thing to ask our team. I have not actually thought about that, so I will bring that up with our engineers and see if that's something that is it even possible to be tied in with the AF system, because I know that they're run into the two separate things here. ABDO Media, Lumix, we need RAW and log for free in your next cameras. Come on, get the RAW. Forget about all that. Give us RAW. You have RAW. The S5 can do RAW out over HDMI for both Blackmagic RAW and also for ProRes RAW, depending on the recorders that you have. So it's there. The S1H can do it. The S1 can do it. The GH5S can do it. The BGH1 can do it. The BS1H can do it also. So, yeah, you've got a number of options available right now that shoot RAW over HDMI. Super Zero, would not multi-aspect ratio 6K sensor be enough to deal with the vertical filming and deal with the verticalization in post? Well, so a lot of it's just going to depend on the output that you're doing. So if you're recording 6K resolution, so 6K open gate, that's what we'll talk in theoretics. So that'd be 6,000 wide. So 6,000 wide, if you're going to be doing vertical, you've got some more than enough resolution for the 1080p that 90% of platforms are down-resing vertical content to. So you can still be shooting your horizontal, but the vertical is still going to have more than enough resolution. Height-wise, you would definitely want to be shooting open gate. I mean, you can still shoot 4K, 3840 by 2160. It's there. You've got enough resolution for it. I think what you'll see over the years, and as we just kind of continue further and further down this, cameras will have the ability to just, hold your camera vertically and it'll tag. I mean, our cameras do that now. You can toggle that on and off. If you know that you're shooting vertically and that's the purpose of the content, yeah, you can just flip the camera vertically, make sure you toggle it, and then when you import that footage into things like Premiere or Lightroom, or not Lightroom, Premiere or Final Cut, yeah, it's going to be vertical and you're fine. But then you also have the more than enough resolution in horizontal to have all of those different cropping aspect ratios. That's why in the interview, like I mentioned about how we've kind of come full circle, and a lot of things are very cyclical when it comes to the photo industry. You've got that ability to shoot open gate and then just mask your frame off, and have shoot wide. Make sure you've got more than enough resolution if you're doing 6K, and you've just got everything that you need to be able to output in almost any platform that you can possibly think of. So, with that, I just looked at my watch and realized that we're an hour and 24 minutes into this stream, so I am actually going to have to call this one today. Thank you all so much for your comments and your questions in the chat. I love seeing, a chat that is actually really active with each other. Tons of conversations, a lot of really good questions. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that interview with Fritz. I know it's a very different kind of thing that we've had in our streams. Talking a little bit more about marketing and vertical video. It's not as common of a thing that we normally talk about here, but let's hear Super Zoom Lumix, no raw over HDMI for GH502 firmware, maybe. I have no information on the 20 megapixel sensors doing raw over HDMI. I know that the GH5S and the BGH1 can do it. They're utilizing the same sensor. The S series, they're using pretty much all the similar variations of the sensors. Anything on the 20 megapixel sensor, unfortunately, I have no info as to whether or not they can do it. So with that, again, everybody, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, sticking with me for the hour and 20 minutes that we've been going live. These streams are so much fun. If you have time and if this stream is something that you enjoyed, please consider giving us a like and a subscribe on our channels. It helps me out in building this channel even bigger, getting more kinds of content to bring out to everybody. If you haven't already, it also helps me out if you go over and check out our Instagram account. And if you happen to like what you see there, maybe give us a follow over there as well. I do consider, I do continue the conversation over on that platform as well. Last reminder here, Lumix Pro Services, we have the red tier in the US. It is the free tier. Go over, take a look at the lumix-pro.us. If you are in the United States at the platinum and the red tier, get yourself registered on it. If you are outside of the United States, go take a look at our international page, which will bring you to the Lumix Pro Services over in your region, where you can kind of troubleshoot stuff there and check out. Keep your questions coming. If you have suggestions for future streams, you can always drop us a line at lumixlive@us.panasonic.com. That helps me build up all the different streams that we've got going on. With that, again, thank you, everybody. Next week is going to be a recorded stream because I'm on vacation and it happens to be Thanksgiving here in the United States. So it will be a recorded stream. You'll see that actually will get posted probably Monday or Tuesday. So it'll be a YouTube premiere. So keep an eye out for that. If you get subscribed to the channel, you get the notification when that stream goes up. And outside of that, I hope everyone has a really good weekend. I hope everyone has a really good holiday next week if you do celebrate. And yeah, hope everyone has a good rest of your day. I will see you all live in 2 weeks, and I will broadcast to you next week, Thursday at 2 p.m. Take care, everybody.